For a long time, when I heard the words intentional living, I pictured someone who had their whole life planned out. They knew exactly what they were doing every day. Their house was always organized. They had these perfect morning routines, and somehow they were never in their kitchen at like 7 o'clock trying to figure out why they walked in there in the first place. That's not my life. My attention changes, my energy changes, I get distracted. And I can turn a 5-minute project into a 2-hour project without even realizing that's what I'm doing. For me, it means being a little more deliberate about what gets my time, my energy, my attention, and my space. I changed the way that I think about my everyday life and my home and the things I did to make my life easier overall. And that's not because I'm more disciplined. I've just gotten better at asking, does this actually need to be hard? Here are 9 intentional living habits that have made my ADHD life easier. Intentional living habit number 1 is I decide what good enough looks like before I start. And here's one thing ADHD is good at: changing the size of the task after I've already started. I can walk into the kitchen thinking, I'm just going to clean this one counter. And right there, I see something that belongs in the cabinet. Then I open that cabinet, and then now I'm reorganizing the whole cabinet. And then I find something I haven't used in 6 months, and now I'm actually decluttering. And the result after that is the original counter I intended to clean is still dirty. So now what I do, I decide what good enough looks like before I begin. If I'm resetting this counter, then maybe good enough looks like the dish is put away, the trash is gone, the counter is wiped. And here's the important thing. The goal is not to finish everything I noticed. The goal is to finish the things I decided mattered most. And once those things are done, I'm done. So when you start a task that begins to grow, decide what the finish line is. And if you need to, go ahead and write it down, but ask the question, what has to happen for this to be good enough? And then when you reach the point of good enough, give yourself permission to stop. And here's a good example. I'm taking the dishes out of the dishwasher, and then I'm putting them back in the places they belong. I have plates, I have bowls, I have different coffee mugs and things that belong in certain places in my cabinet. I even go and take the silverware and put it in the right place. And here's me doing a quick wipe of the counter as well. I'm just doing it until it's good enough. Intentional living habit number 2, I leave space empty on purpose. I used to look at empty space as available storage. If there was an empty space, something needed to be put there. If there was any room on the counter, something could sit there. If there was extra room inside a cabinet, something could probably go in there. But the thing is, there's a problem with that. If we keep filling up every available space in our home becomes hard to manage. So now I start looking at empty space differently. Empty space needs to have a purpose. It makes it easier to see what I have. It makes it easier to put things away. I even have somewhere to put something temporarily when I need it. And the great thing is, visually, there is less stuff competing for my attention. And you can see right here, this counter is clear in the beginning, and then as time goes on, more stuff starts to appear on the counter as you put more stuff and more stuff and more stuff there. You end up with pots and spices and apples and whatever really doesn't belong there. You just kind of put that stuff there because there was an empty space there. And here's what I decided. This space is for my pans I use when I cook. Also my olive oil, my teriyaki sauce, and maybe some salt right there. If you're enjoying the content and getting value out of the content, then like the video and subscribe to the channel. Intentional living habit number 3 is I give myself fewer choices. Most people normally think having more choices makes life better. And sometimes it does, but choices require decisions. What am I eating? What am I wearing? Where do I have to go today? What kind of clothes do I need to wear to go to wherever I'm trying to go today? And with ADHD, I can spend a lot of mental energy making decisions about things that really don't matter much. So what I did to make it easier, I've intentionally made some parts of my life really repetitive. A good example is food. I eat basically the same thing most days. In the morning for breakfast, it's either eggs or bacon or oatmeal. For in the evening when I eat dinner, it's probably going to be stir fry a lot of the times with some rice and some vegetables, either chicken or beef. And the reason I do this is a couple of different reasons. One, I want to make sure anything that I cook only takes 15 minutes. I know what ingredients I need to buy. I know that I already like the meals. I know that it's going to be a big or small meal and how I can plan accordingly for that. So here's what you want to do. Figure out one decision you make over and over and over again. Then you want to make a default breakfast, a default dinner, a default lunch, whatever. Or you might have a default time to do something. You might have a default set of clothes or outfits that you wear. And if you want to change it up, you can always choose something else. But when you have a default, you don't have to. And here's a look inside my refrigerator. On this top shelf, I have ground beef, ground chicken, things I can cook really easily. Then on the bottom shelf, I have my fruit right there. And you can see on both of these shelves, I just have a limited amount of choices to choose from. Intentional living habit number 4, I choose what gets my best energy. I used to mostly think about managing my time. Here's what I realized though, having time and having useful energy isn't always the same thing. I can have 2 free hours, but that doesn't mean I have 2 good hours for something that requires me to focus a lot. And the other thing is my energy is not the same all throughout the day. For example, for me, the best time for me to actually be creative and think about things is really late at night going into the morning. I just get motivated then. And then sometimes during the day, I just feel like I don't want to do a whole lot of everything. I just want to relax and let my mind just take a break and refresh. So instead of asking, when do I have time? I also ask, what kind of energy is this going to take? To make this simple, there are 3 different types of energy: high energy, medium energy, and low energy. So when you're trying to do a task, you have your high energy task, your medium energy task, and your low energy task. And so an example of a high energy task is being on your computer and checking email. You have to figure out what kind of email you're gonna send, what you're gonna say in the email, decide if you want to actually get rid of the email or keep it. That's a really high energy thing. On the opposite end, the low energy task is that you have just taken one dish and put it into the dishwasher. Just one, washing one dish. That's all a low energy kind of task. A medium energy task might mean that you're going to empty the whole dishwasher or put all the dishes into the dishwasher or wash all the dishes. And here's a good example. I'm going to use laundry to show you the difference between the 3 different types of energy. Low energy, I come by, I throw my clothes into the laundry basket, not even thinking about folding them or anything. Medium energy, I take those clothes and I'm going to fold the clothes and put them away, or just fold the clothes to get that done. High energy, I decide that I'm actually going to do a couple different loads that I haven't done. I'm just trying to catch up on laundry. So you see right here, I have these 2 baskets of clothes. These are clothes I'm going to tackle today because I had the energy to do it. I've created a free ADHD decluttering checklist. All you have to do is look in the description to get the link to get the free ADHD declutter checklist. Intentional living habit number 5, I stop saving things for the right time. ADHD can make the future seem like it's a great place to do everything. I'll deal with that later. I'll use that later for sure. I'll start when I have more time. I'll organize when I have more energy. But here's the problem. Later can turn into a lot of stuff we keep looking at and constantly managing. I've actually had things where I moved from one place to another because I just wasn't ready to make a decision as to what I wanted to do with it. And the thing is, every time I move that same thing, I'm making the same decision again. It's about not now, maybe later. Intentional living made me start asking, what am I waiting for? And at some point I realized dealing with it once is way better than repeatedly deciding not to deal with it. And here's the good thing. Once you make that decision to do it right then and there, that decision is over. You don't have to think about it again. So this is a good example. I have a tumbler right here. I put the tumbler down at one location and then later I come back, pick up the tumbler and then move it to another location on the counter. And then I think about it again and move it to another location on the counter. And so I would have to come back a 4th time and actually move it to the right place in my kitchen or wherever it needs to go, instead of just taking it to the right place on the first time. Intentional living habit number 6, I stop optimizing things that already work. This is something I have to remind myself of. I like finding better ways to do things, and sometimes that's useful. And sometimes I'm trying to solve a problem that I really don't have. Maybe I see a new organizer, a new app, a new routine, a new container, and then I start changing something that was already working. There's nothing wrong with improving something, but every change requires me to learn the new way, learn how to set it up, learn how to get used to it. So intentional living sometimes means saying, this works, don't change it. I could buy this, I could move everything around, I can create more categories, I could label everything, and maybe that would be better. But here's the question, what problem am I fixing? And if I can't answer that, I'm just going to leave it alone. And here's a good example. I have a basket right here. This basket has all my pens inside it. Well, most of my pens inside it. And so instead of just leaving this basket alone, I decide I'm going to separate these pens into different baskets. I'm going to separate them by color, by what color the pen is, what color the top is, what kind of pen it is. And you see, I'm going through and adding more baskets and setting them and actually separating them in different ways as I add more and more and more baskets. And it's not helping at all. I could just leave them in this one basket instead of making things more complicated for me by having 4 baskets with 4 different types of categories, 4 different types of pens. And that's not really solving anything. That's not really helping anything, because when I need a pen, I just need a pen. Intentional living habit number 7, I make room before I add. I've started thinking about when I bring something new into my life, what happens after that? And the reason is I buy things on impulse sometimes. That's the easy part. And at the time, I'm not thinking about that I have to put this somewhere, I have to clean it, I have to maintain it. Those are all things that are required when I bring an item into my home. And that ends up being a whole bunch of different decisions that I have to make. I have to remember that I own it and then eventually make another decision about it. So instead of bringing something into my home and then asking the question, where do I put this? I'm gonna reverse it and say, where did this go before I bring it home or bring it into my home? And this doesn't only apply to stuff, it can apply to time as well. If I add another commitment to the week, where is that time coming from? If I start another project, what happens to all the previous projects I've already started? Sometimes adding something new means intentionally deciding what gets less. And here's a good example. I'm going to use coffee mugs. In this cabinet, I want to put a couple of different coffee mugs in here. I take one, I'm looking at the plates and the bowls and everything. I try to put it in that same cabinet. It's not going to fit. I don't know where I can fit this. I try a couple of different places and I still find out it's not going to fit. So what I do, I rearrange some things inside that cabinet, and then eventually I create space there so I can have the coffee cups there. And here's what I should have done. I should have actually made space in the cabinet before actually trying to put the coffee mugs in there, because there was no space in the cabinet. Now I had to go and try different things to try to fit the coffee mugs in there instead of already having space ready for those coffee mugs to be in that cabinet. Intentional living habit number 8, I protect my attention like it's limited. We talk a lot about managing time, but with ADHD, attention is just as important. I can have an hour of free time available, but that does not mean it's gonna be an hour of useful attention. My phone is competing for it. My notifications are competing for my attention, or another thought just pops into my head about something I've been thinking about or want to do, and then I'm doing something completely different or thinking about something completely different. So I'm trying to be more intentional about what gets access to my attention. And here's one good example. I'm at my counter, I'm trying to read, and as I'm going through trying to understand what I'm reading, the phone keeps going off. I keep looking at my phone because it lights up, and I figure, okay, there's something important I need to actually look at, or maybe I just want to look at my phone just to scroll through it or anything like that. And every time it lights up, I have my attention on my phone instead of what I am actually reading. And so now my attention is split, but the phone is not something important really that I need to pay attention to when I'm trying to actually focus on reading. Intentional living habit number 9, I ask one question before adding something to my life. This habit ties a lot of these together. And that's because intentional living isn't only about what I do. It's also about what I allow to be in my life. Commitment, projects, subscriptions, routines. Every new thing can create something else I have to remember, maintain, store, clean, finish, or think about. So I've started asking one question. Will this make my life easier, or will this give me more to manage? Before I buy something, I ask, where is this going? What exactly am I putting inside? Do I already own something like this? Am I actually solving a problem, or is this just something that's going to be in my home and just take up space and become clutter? This works with commitments too. Somebody asked me to do something, and maybe technically there's an empty spot on my calendar, but that doesn't necessarily mean I have room. And that's because here's another question. Do I have the energy and attention for it? Something can fit on my calendar and still not fit in my life. And here's a good example. I bought this 25-piece container set that's supposed to help you organize your drawers. It has different containers for different sizes and everything. But the thing about it is, I have not used it yet. And the reason is I don't have space in any of my drawers to actually use it. I think it would be really cool to have it if you have a drawer in your bathroom or even a drawer in your room or a drawer in your office where you need different containers and things, or even on a desk. You could use these different containers. It would be really cool. And you can see it right here. Some of these things that I'm pulling out still have the packaging on the different containers, but you can see the different sizes that you have here. You have smaller ones, you have longer ones, you have bigger ones. It is a really nice set of containers that you can put anywhere in your home if you have a drawer where you need these containers, or even on a desk where you need some containers for you. I just had nowhere to put it, and so I bought it, and now I'm trying to figure out where I can use it. But if I had thought about it a little more, then I would have figured out someplace I could put it or what I could use it for before I bought it. The biggest thing I've learned about intentional living with ADHD is that it isn't about controlling every part of my life. And it definitely isn't about trying to do everything perfectly. For me, it's about being more deliberate about what deserves my space, my time, my energy, and my attention. Sometimes that means deciding what good enough looks like. Sometimes it means leaving space empty. Sometimes it's giving myself fewer choices. And sometimes an intentional decision I can make is not adding something else. And that's because I'm not trying to create a life where I manage more and more and more. Does this need to be hard? Sometimes the answer isn't another ADHD hack. It isn't an organizer, and it isn't just trying harder. Sometimes it's deciding that something doesn't deserve as much of our time, energy, attention, or space that we have been given it. And ultimately, what I find myself asking is, what would make this easier? And then I try that.